Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm giving you guys my top 5 rogue recommendations for decks to try out in February. We don't really have much going on this month because set 15 has been kind of dragging on, getting a little bit stale since set 16 was delayed pretty heavily until March. So without many events going on this month, we don't have anything really happening until the DBS Fest in March. I feel like it's a pretty good time to try out some decks that maybe you'll find fun, maybe you haven't really been exposed to, and maybe even some decks that might have a pretty solid position going into set 16. And we'll talk about some of those in today's video. If you're new here though, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a Dragon Ball Super video. And if you guys want to help support the channel, many ways down in the description to do so. But today, if you're looking for custom sleeves, playmats, any TCG accessories like that, even foil playmats, use my link in the description to yourplaymat.com. Not only will you get 10% off your order, but their art sleeves are really high quality. The number one thing about art sleeves is that if they're low quality, a lot of the ones you'll find at your local game stores, they'll peel after just a couple days of use. These art sleeves don't peel, they're awesome. I love my crossword art sleeves that your playmat sent me. They are really high quality, guys. Anyways, again, 10% off your order with the link in the description. Let's get into the first deck I want to talk about. Alright, so we have green Gotenks. Now here's the thing with green. There's one deck that's carrying green on its back throughout the meta, and that's Cell Surge. In set 16, that deck's not going to be playable because the leader is getting banned. So what else do we have to look forward to green in set 16? Champa and Beerus, I think they'll be okay rogue decks, but I want to talk about a deck that's been able to kind of prove itself throughout the previous formats while green hasn't been too powerful. And one of those decks is green Gotenks. Now the other one you could think about, I'm sure I'll get comments about it down below, is King Cold. A lot of people do really like that deck. I didn't place it here because I just personally like Gotenks more than King Cold. I don't think King Cold is very fun. I think it's kind of annoying when you kind of get screwed over by having too many field cards, too little field cards. That whole thing just doesn't really, interest me, let's just say. So Gotenks I find to be a much more fun deck, not only because it's got an awesome character, I love Gotenks, but besides that, I do kind of like the style of Grim Reaper Beatdown, and the deck just like draws and filters so many cards, which is kind of unusual for a green deck. Now don't get me wrong, this and King Cold are not like typical green decks in the sense that they don't really do a whole ton of hand control, but they really just play through their own resource engines. And again, Gotenks does that through the Grim Reaper drawing and recycling cards. King Cold does that through the field cards, getting you different forms of advantages, things like that. But I do really like green Gotenks going into set 16, which is why I'm recommending you guys try it out and practice it now, because again, green's taking a big hit, but all the top colors are taking a big hit, so they all should come down a peg, meaning that even though Gotenks is right now a rogue deck, it might be all that much better going into set 16. So that's a really good angle to approach this from. I also really like the fact that this is a good deck for budget players, for the main reason being that your SCR is actually very affordable, because this deck can lean very heavily into Cell Xeno SCR, which was reprinted in Mythic Booster and is now much more affordable, because 2 Grim Reapers of Justice are your 2 6-cost green cards, and it's very easy in this format to make it to turn 5, especially if you're not playing against any of the aggressive decks. And with that in mind, you play Cell Xeno, gives you really good win condition on top of the pressures you're providing with your Grim Reaper Beatdown. So again, I like Gotenks. I think it's a really good deck for new players because it's not all that complicated. It's pretty simple. You're mostly just going to be establishing your unison and then just dropping Grim Reapers as often as you can, and then turn 5 Cell Xeno, go for game, and it should be relatively budget friendly with a lot of the green cards that have been reprinted, like Dormant Potential Unleashed. Still need to reprint a Charismatic Villain. That's a little bit annoying, but I'm sure we'll get it in the near future. So yeah, Gotenks, definitely try it out. Then we have Red Jiren. Okay, quick story. So I haven't had a locals in the last 2 years, and that's mostly due to the pandemic. But I actually just got a new store that opened up nearby that's now doing Dragon Ball locals. So that's awesome. Been having a lot of fun going to locals. For the past month, I've been playing Jiren. It's I've mentioned it a lot of times here. I have a profile from maybe a month ago that I'm still playing pretty much the same list. This deck's a lot of fun. I really like it, and I think one of the main reasons is because this deck actually rewards you for knowing matchups, and here's why. Jiren is an aggro deck, yes. Most aggro decks in this current format aren't like, turn 1, turn 2 kills like we've seen in the past. Most of the aggro decks in this format are mid-range aggro. So if you know how to manipulate different matchups that you come across, you can actually get a lot more mileage out of Jiren. And the main reason for that is Jiren does not have to attack on his unawakened side. And I've talked about it so many times, how powerful that is to be able to gain advantage without having to attack on your unawakened side. And Jiren can do that. For example, against Icarus, I don't ever attack them until they awaken themselves, and that actually limits the amount of card draw they get early on, because they don't get to do their, you know, draw 2, swing, combo, higher dragon, get all these crazy draws, right? So yeah, I don't swing with them. I just establish a super wide board because Jiren puts 1 cost in the field for free, which you can then evolve over for free most of the time, that kind of thing. And then I set up my kill turn. So you can be really methodical with Jiren, and it's not like your typical red deck where everything is turned sideways. You can actually stall your opponent, which is actually a method that hasn't been super strong in Dragon Ball for a long time. It was actually a really strong method back in the set 1, set 2, and even set 3 days, where Self-Awaken wasn't as popular. It wasn't really tied to leaders. People didn't always play that many main deck cards that could Self-Awaken. They would side deck them for like stally strategies. But with Jiren, you have the best of both worlds. You can be super aggressive or super stally. You just have to know what matchup to to do the corresponding thing in, and it can be really, really rewarding. Next up, I want to talk about SS4 Goku. Now, this is one you guys probably didn't expect. SS4 Goku, you can also consider this SS4 Gohan if you want to play that leader instead. You can even probably consider like Demigroff from set 3, the really old leader, or maybe it's set 4, one of those two. But anyways, yeah, the real reason I'm recommending this like old school style of just like typical black mill leader is because there are a lot of new really good black cards coming out in set 16, one of which is Demon God Poutine Umbral Might. The other is Support of the Dark Empire, the new extra card, which is essentially Black's version of Homicidal Clones. Just your typical free negate that allows you to take a life of 5 or less, and then produces a blocker token. Now, going into set 16, we have 2 really strong black decks on the horizon, maybe 3 if you count Hachiyak, but the main 2 are Gogeta Xeno and SSG Trunks, which is pretty much just going to play the Gogeta Xeno stuff. The cool thing about this leader, though, going back to like old school mill, is that you set up a card like Demon God Poutine on turn 1 very, very easily because you're a burst 3 leader, right? Not only that, you can also just still play the same Vegex cards that mill into play for free, all your different time patrol cards. And on top of that, you can just play the Gogeta Xeno engine as well. So you have all these different strong engines at your disposal. Again, the Vegex stuff, the Gogeta Xeno stuff, and this new Demon God Poutine / Support of the Dark Empire extra card. So a lot of good things these leaders have going for them, and theoretically Gogeta Xeno should come down quite a few pegs in power. So maybe these black decks are a bit more comparable, probably still more so rogue compared to the other ones, but they still seem pretty solid in my opinion. Alright, next up, guys, I've talked about this in a lot of rogue videos actually. This might be the 3rd one that I'm mentioning it, but Android 21, I just can't get enough of this leader. I have loved playing this leader ever since it came out in set 8, and there's been so many different cool variants you can play, and there are so many cool cards that this strategy allows you to explore. And Android 21 has actually been putting up some crazy results. It managed to top 8 North American Nationals, and there was just an event a weekend or 2 ago that I covered here on the channel. It was a PPG event in Tampa, I believe, at which Android 21 was able to take another top cut slot. So it really does seem that this deck is in many ways able to prove itself. Don't get me wrong, it hasn't put up like tons of numbers of results, but there is a bit of consistency there, right? North American Nationals top 8, that's no easy feat in the slightest. It did also top an event before Nationals, but that was the same player, so I'm going to kind of combine those two together. Shout out to Rohit. And yeah, again, another top going into the Tampa event. So 21, just like a pretty solid control deck, just ramps up, plays a huge boss monster that wipes the opponent's board. It's tough for your opponent to interact with. I do think it's kind of a slam dunk control deck for any guys that want to try maybe something new in the realm of control. If you like Invoker, if you like Hachiyak, if you like Shenron, this is going to give you not so much a similar feel in exactly how it plays, but just a similar feel in terms of control, but also while doing something a bit different that I think is really, really fun. And then the final recommendation, guys, is try out Cell Surge. Now, before you guys just like get mad at me or anything, I'm not talking about the typical Cell Surge hand control style of deck. The reason I'm recommending Cell Surge is because there's actually a real successor engine that's meant to be played with this leader, and once this leader gets banned in set 16, that's no longer going to be a playable strategy, at least the way it was intended to be played with Cell Perfection Surpass. Keep in mind as well that the Parasitic Cell, the 4 of green yellow card that people play in Cell Surge to Self-Awaken, and it also has the free play ability if you have 4 or more energy, that card is just not going to be playable until they print, I guess, a new green yellow Cell leader. I'm assuming they may reboot this leader maybe with some hopefully more balanced effects, but yeah, that card and this strategy of Cell Successor is not going to be playable for a while Cell Surge is banned. So it seems like something worth playing if you like this old school style of Successor. Cell Surge is probably one of the better leaders to kind of facilitate it. And if you're playing this version of Cell Surge and not the pure hand control version, you're not going to be that hated guy at locals, so that's also a plus in and of itself. But anyways, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Let me know what rogue decks you guys are playing in February. Love to know what you guys are thinking in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.